Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Amanda Chen. Amanda is obsessed with uncovering the truth behind why we are the way we are. A huge advocate for women entrepreneurship, she spends her time empowering women to live life on their own terms. She accomplishes this by helping them challenge the status quo and thus gain the courage to conquer their fears. Amanda recently launched a new podcast called the Miss Amanda Chen Show that will focus on uncovering how our sexuality affects our ideas of self-worth based on reactions of people we interact with. With over 10 years of experience in digital content and journalism, she now seeks to use her skills in research and storytelling to empower others to have real conversations about themselves and what they genuinely want in life. The first season of the Miss Amanda Chen Show is called #100 Masked Men, where Amanda will interview 100 anonymous men about their views on masculinity and how the attention from women contribute to their feelings of success or failure as a man. As a huge advocate for women empowerment, she now realizes the power in providing two sides to the story and hopes to bring out new perspectives that define how we view our self-worth and how to overcome our insecurities so that we can be less affected by the actions of others and have a stronger self-awareness. Amanda founded Salty Paloma in 2018 with a desire to create a brand for herself. It began as a line of naturally flavored salts and sugars designed specifically for cocktails. Lastly, Amanda aims to add more fairness, kindness, and equality in the world and restore the balance between men and women by sharing as many stories and perspectives she can find. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Amanda. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to this. So, Amanda, I have a fixation with, years of listening to podcasting now and now being a guest. People always ask, what's your back end story? What's this about your life? And that's fine and dandy. But one of the things that's always kind of irked me over the years is we have this series of Marvel and Star Wars where they start things in the middle. And then when people kind of are interested, they dial it back and talk about the origin of how things started. I don't think that's the way life should be. I think we should know and start from the origin because that's the essence of who we are and helped us along our journey to where we become. So to me, the origin story is very important. So tell me your origin story and what things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
Okay. My childhood story, I was born here in Toronto, Canada, and I wanted to draw a lot when I was a kid. And in high school, actually, I had a high school teacher that was just very discouraging. And he said that he actually gave me my lowest grade in school. And I, have very disciplinary parents that just wanted me to get straight A's. So the only B that I ever got was in art, which was something that I was really passionate about and eventually I gave up on. And from there, I thought the natural path would be to be a successful one, focus on, something a little bit more straight-laced. Towards the end of high school, all I really cared about was journalism. I wanted to work in a magazine, and I was a part of the high school newspaper club, as everyone is. And I've always had a theme of rebellion, I guess, going against the status quo, just doing things differently. So I created a satirical newspaper that was all the things that would never get published. So an example would be like fortune teller wins the lottery or something like that. And just news that actually makes sense to be news, but no one would ever publish that. And naturally, I never got into any of the journalism programs for any universities based on that portfolio. And towards the end of it, I ended up going into English. I studied linguistics. I studied English literature, studied philosophy. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to move to New York and start interning at a bunch of magazines and see where that takes me. Randomly, I guess I got into this whole obsession with sexuality because I started my own blog, horrible name, in 2010, but it was called Body Noise. And it was about sex and relationships. And I guess I started one of the first YouTube vlog things that ever happened on the internet, where I went into a sex toy shop and I picked out a product and took it home and unboxed it and reviewed it. And the owner of that sex toy shop ended up contacting me and asking me to write all of their product descriptions for their first e-com site.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how that ended up there. I was kind of the expert for the business of sex toys. So health magazines would ask me about just new data in orgasms or whatever, and I would have to kind of report on new products and new technological enhancements in that industry. And over a couple of years, I ended up at Cosmo magazine in London, England. And unfortunately, again, they put me in the beauty section. So even though Cosmo always talks about sex, they never let me do any articles on sex toys or masturbation or sex relationships. So again, I keep noticing this trend of always being put away from something that I was passionate about. So towards, I guess, my early 20s, I started to accept that. I started to think, you know what, maybe people can't accept the real me. So maybe I should just not be the real me. And I think this is when I began to really wear a mask and be more corporate, move in from the journalism space to public relations, to marketing, to social media. I ended up becoming basically a talent manager for influencers on social media and completely hating my life at that point, because here I am doing all of the dirty work for a pretty low salary while these influencers waltz around, you know, getting the star treatment, doing whatever they want. And here I am kind of not getting any credit for what I'm doing. So that's what began Salty Paloma and that journey for me, because I just wanted something that I could call my own for once, that I could decide how that branding is going to look like, that I can decide what that story is. And the story behind Salty Paloma is I'm not a good cook. So whenever we would have dinner parties, I was always in charge of drinks because no one would let me in the kitchen, and setting up the table only took 5 minutes. So I had nothing else to do. So I busied myself by making flavored salts. And from there, my friend said, why don't you sell them? So I thought, you know what, sure, why not? So I just threw myself into that whole production phase, and with zero experience in business or any understanding at all with operations, started the product. And I'd love to say, like, in 4 years' time, Salty Paloma has, you know, created multiple flavors of salts and sugars. We do a lot of branded work with various alcohol companies, and we do custom flavors of salt for them. We work with massive retailers now, and we also have very COVID-friendly additional services where we provide virtual cocktail classes. We also offer cocktail kits for delivery, and now we started the Stay at Home Cocktail Club, which is a online community where we send monthly recipes to subscribers, and we give them secret recipes, and we have just a mini community of people that just want to get connected and have a little drink, and also just like learn something new. So that's kind of been the change of my direction in terms of entrepreneurship. And I think the biggest thing for me was to influence women in a way that, like, if I can do this by salt, if I can, you know, make a living through salt, I'm sure whatever idea you have is going to be fine the way it is. And just that humble beginning of expressing that story. And once I had all of those things put together, I guess I finally realized, okay, well, what about me? Can the real Amanda show up now? And I think that's when I decided on creating the Miss Amanda Chen Show podcast. I was going to name it Just About Me. It's going to be 100% authentic. And I thought, what do I really want to talk about? And I thought about the first time I started my blog 10 years ago. And when I do coach female entrepreneurs, a lot of the time I can give them as much confidence and empower them as much as they can, give them all the right tools, and they'd be on a great track. And then one week it'll all explode, and it'll begin with, oh, well, there was this guy, ... And that would be so disappointing because I can't help them deal with that situation, because that's completely out of my control. It's also completely out of her control. And here she is putting all of her self-worth into this other human. And then I realized that's what needs to change. Our connections with other people, our interactions with other people, our intentions, the communication that we have needs to change, not just feeling better about ourselves. Like at the end of the day, we still live in a material world and we still have to cooperate with each other. And I think we were kind of moving in the wrong direction of creating our own silos, protecting ourselves by just like avoiding everybody else that we don't like. But you can't just do that. Like at the end of the day, we still all have to live on the same earth together. And I think my new passion is really to challenge what the media is informing us about, give us more knowledge, more information, more perspectives from various people in all different walks of life, so that we can finally have more informed decisions about ourselves, make our own more conscious decisions, and live a better life.
Wow, you're probably the best origin story description from start to finish that I've had on the show thus far. And it's amazing what you've gone through, the ups and downs. And it's really shocking though that, I think one of the things that stuck out to me was the fact that you go to go for Cosmo UK, and then there's no conversation about sex or sex toys or anything else. It's just like, are you not a magazine designed around women empowerment? Like, I'm kind of confused by that. But, we are all stuck within somebody's defined walls of what we should be, how we should act and talk and communicate. And, good for you for, just realizing whether that light bulb effect or moment goes on in our 20s, 30s, whenever it happens, at least you come to the realization that you wanted to be the ultimate version of Amanda, somebody that's unique and authentic. So many people just cower. They sit down and they just curl up in a ball, like, metaphorically, obviously, for the rest of their lives. And they never really find out who they are. They never really vocalize who they are. And they let the committee of they, or what like I call society, the committee of they, always say, well, this is what you should be doing. This is what the rest of the world is doing. This is where you need. What? How dare you do that? That's not how normal people do. And I used to always tell my kids growing up, when I was a child, Dad used to always feel like I was just a number. I was never special and unique. And you need to be the most ultimate version of yourself. And I'd rather you be abnormal than to be normal. And they used to chuckle. And then when they got older, they started telling some of their friends that our dad encourages us not to be normal. He wants us to be abnormal. And I had the odd time I'd go to extracurricular stuff and have parents say, what are you teaching your kids? Right. So, some of these parents didn't like it. I didn't care. Like we talked about off air, they weren't part of my tribe, and that's okay. It took me until I was in my 30s to realize that the committee of they and their opinion doesn't have to be my defined definition of who I am or who I want to be. So good for you. Kudos. I really enjoyed that. Right up to, creating your salt company, not being a great cook, setting the table, I had to create myself and get to a point of being a decent cook because I raised 5 kids, right? Yeah. So they relied on me to kind of put food into their bellies so they could survive. But I understand what you're saying. It's just, you're tenacious. I love it. You're a person that just, you have tenacity and you know what you want. It may take some time for you to get there, but that's like a lot of us. We have so many different people pulling us so many different ways and how we should define ourselves. And like you mentioned, the mask, You know, people like Lewis Howes with his book on masks and stuff is so true. And yeah, we have a problem in our society where people can't just be open. And I love the fact that I never knew that about you. You know, body noise, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And then taking that and being able to review sex toys, that's great. And I don't smile and chuckle about it because, you know, like some men or women can get all giddy about stuff. I smile and chuckle about it because I'm proud of you for doing that. Like, you know, how many people would think of doing that? Hey, let's go buy a sex toy, unpackage it, and give a review for it, and then get
Yeah.
work out of it to boot. So, what an amazing origin story. Thanks so much. Um, so, what led you, Amanda, to be obsessed with the uncovering the truth behind why we are the way we are?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think it's really funny. I feel like I was raised like a man. I think if you think of modern society, going to school, going to university, you are, especially in English lit, we were all introduced to all of the biggest male characters, and we learned about the hero's journey, which was very male. We learned about freedom and independence and competition and contest and conquest. All of these things that are very male focused desires. And then there's chicklet, there's women's studies, and that's kind of like a whole separate thing, and you have to be a woman to go to women's studies, and it didn't translate the same way. So I felt that was what I was always trying to be. I was always trying to think like a man, be like a man, act like a man. And then randomly Amanda would show up, and then I'm like, oh man, I was on this track, I thought I was doing well. And I think I really took the quote, fake it till you make it, to heart. I really didn't want to be myself for the longest time, because I believed that myself was not good enough, that I need to be somebody better, and I need to collect all of these skills and experiences to be that other person. And then when I do accidentally become myself is when I reach the true success. When I accidentally become myself and I realize, hey, why don't I just make salts for fun? Why don't I start coaching other female entrepreneurs? Why don't I challenge a bunch of guys and mask them and, talk about their feelings and make them uncomfortable? Why not do all of these things? And then that's when I refuel my own power, when I recognize it again, reignite it. And how powerful that is, what wakes me up every day. That makes me want to find more people to encourage them to start living their true selves, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that didn't want to be themselves for a long time.
Oh, yeah, pick me. I'll pick me. For those listening and not watching this, I put my hand up because so much in life. I really resonated with that. So much in life we're controlled by our education system. You talked about feeling like you're raised as a male, and we were segregated. The segregation that happens with what we're educated in English class is so true. It's all about Shakespeare's works, which are all about, they're all masculine. Let's be real. It's all about, men and, like you said, the hero. And, then you talked about the fact of having to take a class that is only, you have to be a woman to do. Like, our society has constantly caused a huge division between male and female. And it is very frustrating. And one of the things I speak up about all the time or work on is the fact that, I wish they would get rid of the definition of, at least specifically on forums, whether they ask if you're a male or female. It should not matter. There shouldn't be, yes, there can be specific women's groups and men's groups because they can support one another and lift one another. But beyond that, in a social construct, we're male and female, we're human. We're all hanging out as humans. I don't, just because a woman can have a baby and I can't, doesn't make them any more special than me. What they can perform and do is special, but that doesn't mean that they're better caregiver, that they're a better person at being nurturing. Things that I've fought against, and you and I talked about this when we talked, I think it was a couple weeks back. I've fought against that most of my life, right? Raising my children and stuff, that I can't be a nurturer, I can't do different things. And I love the fact that you talked about the fact that they segregated people already back in school. our education system in Canada and in the US, because I'm quite familiar with it in the US as well, from doing training. And obviously I know a lot of people down there. Their education system's broken too, just like ours. It's so structured within a broken mindset. It doesn't teach us how to cope with life. It doesn't teach Amanda to be the best version of herself right from high school. I'd rather they teach more about the human condition and building us up as humans, and that we're all equal. And that, what's the wildest thing you could think about, Amanda, right now that you'd like to do? What, no matter what it is. Oh, you all of a sudden broadcast, well, I want to review sex toys, whatever, you know what I mean? Why can't you talk about that stuff? We can't talk about that stuff, but it starts really in our homes. Let's be real, right? Our parents teach us a lot of this. Oh, you got to be very conservative about what you communicate about and what you talk to about other people. And you got to wear your clothing a certain way, your hair a certain way. And especially the pressure on girls. My daughters went through that tremendously, and they wonder why all of a sudden, girls will have stuff in their purse or, bag, backpack, and they go to school. I know I experienced it with my kids who tell me about it, because within reason, I'd let them be who they wanted to be, right? That's who they felt they needed to represent themselves as. I didn't want them being that girl that's rushing into the school, into the bathroom to put on makeup, or if they felt that's what they needed, right? We talked even about the makeup thing, about the beauty of women. And really now as adults, my 4 daughters hardly wear any makeup. And I think, I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that I'd tell them, it's up to you if you want to wear it. Dad thinks you're beautiful without it, right? You don't really need it. But I'd let them go to school and be their unique versions of who they needed to be, right? Was I perfect? Absolutely not. There was probably times I'd say, that's kind of a questionable skirt you're wearing, but I wasn't perfect, but I always strive to understand. And, I appreciate where you're coming from about that. But, sadly in our society today, there's just still too much segregation. And I think the only way that's going to change is people such as yourself just being the unique, genuine you and just sharing, creating a tribe. And hopefully that tribe or that community continues to spread your message, sends more people. Maybe you empower another woman or a man to go out and speak their own truth. Right. And that's what it really is. Who's the true Amanda? Who's the true Dwight? Who do we need to impress? Ourselves, first and foremost. At least I believe that, right? It took me years to get to a point where I could, look at myself in the mirror and love what I seen, and not let the committee of these opinions of myself and, what I thought a man should be or a woman should be. And then I started, rebelling against all that. And then you get all of a sudden you find out who your real community is, right? And that includes family and friends, right? I heard you talk about that too, even with your parents, right? So it's interesting where our society is going. I appreciate the fact that you're doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to that series, to be honest with you. I think it'll be amazing. I think it's going to be really intriguing. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on here. So, so in your new recently released, or pardon me, your new recently launched podcast called the Miss Amanda Chen Show, you were focusing on uncovering how our sexuality affects our ideas of self-worth. How does our sexuality affect our self-worth?
I think it's how we identify ourselves, and what that normally begins with how we identify ourselves through gender. And then within that gender, what are those constructs that are created in society that say we should act like this? And what feelings are we not allowed to feel, or what actions are we not allowed to do? And I've done a lot of research on gender and linguistics recently, on just how men speak to other men versus how men speak to women, and the thought processes on, what that means, and vice versa. And I think that's been the biggest learning process in learning how to communicate differently, because I think once you get used to talking within your family or within your own peer group of friends, and then you meet a bigger group of people and you try to talk to them, and then suddenly the whole conversation gets off topic, when someone misinterprets it or takes it offensively. And I think I really experienced this when I moved to London, when everything I said was offensive and everything they said was offensive, and then nothing would make
Wow.
sense. And now that I'm looking again through a different lens, I'm noticing how deep rooted it is into just misunderstandings and how much we put in our self-worth into our sexuality with other people as well, especially with men when they think that like performance is everything. It's a whole dick measuring contest. It's not like women have a vagina measuring contest. Like we don't
Yeah,
do
exactly.
that,
Exactly.
right? So by doing that, I think that's a huge thing. And then I think men have been recently like, this is all that matters to us. Like women are giving us so much pressure to perform. And it's like, no, other men in power have instilled that through society to make that a thing. And then women have just participated in like being an accomplice to that mentality. But that is so difficult because you literally cannot change your makeup. You cannot change your sexuality, right? You can try to change your dick size, but it shouldn't be about that. You know what I mean? And I think
exactly.
It's very, very interesting to see how much men measure themselves up that way. Even like your urinals are lined up next to each other. If you think of it that way, how much is a man's life dependent on always needing to win the competition? And then how much is it a woman's role to always seek intimacy, seek collaboration, seek relationships? And why do those two butt heads? Naturally, it's because, well, what does the man compete in? Intimacy. That's not a thing to compete in. So sometimes some guys just have no understanding of that. They're like, what do I do here? What's my role if I can't compete? I don't know who's the winner. If you think of men and childhood, when little boys would play games, it's always a sport. There's a winner and there's a loser. Girls play house. There's no winner or losers. We swap roles. It's all about participation. So I think that there's a whole lot that tells you about your sexuality, your gender, and what you expect from the other.
Yeah, you were so right though. You talked about it, we we are confused in how to identify ourselves, and men with their, who's got the biggest dick and stuff like that. But the conversations are like that though, and it's so sad. You get in, you can be around a group of people, men and women, and talking, and then that guy, you're right, you go walk over and there's just a group of guys, and they'll look over at a woman that they would never say that conversation in that other group and say, oh, look at how hot she is, she's got a nice ass or whatever. Not to say that they can't vocalize the fact that they find somebody attractive, but they feel conditioned to speak a certain way around men, a certain way around women, and combined, I just want people to be genuine. If I'm going to say that, somebody has a nice ass, I should be able to, if that's what my vocal way that I talk, I should be able to be the same no matter what. But we all have facades. We have a facade how we act at our jobs. We have a facade walking into our house. We have a facade when we're with our significant other. And we have all these, and it's not just men. Women have this issue as well, that men seem to have been conditioned to have so many masks, it's not even funny. And then because of that, women have different masks to offset that. And we're living in a fake world. It's not genuine enough for me. And part of the reason why I wanted to do my branding in this podcast is Give a Heck, is that I wanted people that give a heck about themselves first and foremost, which you definitely have. And then you're projecting that out to help others, to help redefine the construct of what men should be, how women should be, and how we need to communicate with one another, and our sexuality. Like, who cares? Why can't you talk about sex toys? Why can't you talk about, like you said, men can go out and get a surgery if you really wanted to get your dick bigger. But really, at the end of the day, people look at in society today, the people that don't like the fact that they're a male, and they become a female, they do surgeries or go the opposite way. I think a lot of that wouldn't necessarily go away. It would still happen, but society would be more conditioned to be supportive of younger people. I have a friend, one of their good friends, The daughter, when she was about 14, decided she didn't want to be a girl. She wanted to be a boy. And this woman was fighting against society's sense of normalcy or their definition of it, and she went through all the process of finding about getting the gender reassignment surgery and stuff, and people were it got so bad that she got so ostracized she just couldn't go out anymore, right? And simply she was just trying to help her daughter and what her daughter felt. Now, whether or not I agree with it at that age, that person at 14 really has the ability to make that kind of decision. I'm not saying they don't understand their sexuality, but make that kind of life-altering decision. They might decide they just want to be, transgender and not go through that type of surgery. But the reason I brought that up is there's just so much, there's stuff like that going on outside of our walls that people aren't aware of and don't want to know about. And they just want to live their life of, you man, you woman, you live your role. You don't be sensitive, man. Woman, you do all the sensitive stuff, right? It's just messed up. I just wish it would change, and I wish it would change sooner. And I know I mentioned this to you before. Biggest reason I am the way I am is all of a sudden I'm raising 4 daughters. Yeah. And they were the biggest guiding force for me to want to learn more and learn to communicate better and to listen better. I've still got a long way to go. I'm probably better than most men when it comes to communicating with women or understanding the struggles they go through. And I still remember the first time one of my daughters, we had a conversation about being a feminist. And they explained to me exactly what it was and said, Dad, you're a feminist. And I was kind of offended at first. What do you mean I'm a feminist? Well, Dad, it has nothing to do with you being a definition of a female or a male. This is what it is. And I was like, oh, okay, I can live with that. And I remember my daughter looking at me going, well, that was, that kind of, not necessarily reverberating conversation. It was just like, oh, that was kind of easy. Right. Well, it's because I wanted to understand so much how to communicate with them, to make them feel empowered, because they were already divorced kids, lived a life for many years as suitcase kids back and forth. And all of a sudden now they're living with Dad full time, being judged by society. And I wanted to do whatever I could do to empower them, because I knew the world is a harsh place. It can be a great place too, but a harsh place, and it beats women up so bad. Yes, it beats men up, right? So we both have a perspective. You're on one side, I'm on the other, but really in the end of the day, we meet in the middle. And I think that's why I was so excited to have you on my show, is because we're both striving to help people understand how the human condition, male and female, yes, one's got an innie, one's got an outie, but at the end of the day, we're humans. Just learn to communicate and be raw and honest. And if you offend somebody, it's not your problem. At the end of as long as you're not obviously a jerk or somebody that's intentionally trying to offend somebody. If you're just having a conversation and you're being genuine and somebody doesn't like what you have to say, that's their problem. You don't know what their journey of their life, their origin has been. You don't know what they've seen how their parents act. I think about how my parents were when I was growing up, and I parented differently. I've acted differently in relationships. The list goes on, right? And that's because I consciously had to get to that point and realize that I didn't want to be a copy of what I grew up with, a copy of my friends and family and how they lived life. I wanted to be the ultimate version of me, but it took a long time. And as you mentioned, it happens. It takes us a while to realize, like, what about me? What's important about my life? What do I want to define? What do I want to, I guess, leave a mark on this world? And I talk to about people all the time that, why do you do what you do? Why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself out there now? Why are you doing your book? Why are you blah, blah, blah? Well, I don't want the music to die inside of me. It's taken me a long freaking time to get where I'm at. And I want to make sure that maybe somebody, even if it's one person, I can collapse the time frames for them to heal, recover and realize who they are and who they want to be and what they want to define themselves in the planet. Because really, if you don't, all of that, if it doesn't come to play, I don't think that a person can be a great entrepreneur or business owner either, because they bring that same thought process into how they run their businesses or even how they work at their jobs. And I think that we have to heal from ourselves, love ourselves, and then we can, we can conquer the world and have a community that's that much larger. I love the idea of your company too. That community pretty much encapsulates human. It's not male, female. I think it's amazing. I love it. So, with over 10 years of experience in digital content and journalism, you have learned skills in research and storytelling to empower others to have real conversations about themselves and what they genuinely want in life. Can you share with the listeners some of these skills and how they empower others to have actual real conversations?
I know it's super simple to say, but just listen. And I think this is one interesting thing that I kind of noticed when I was doing my interviews for the 100 Masked Men series, that women want to understand men. Women talk to each other and they ask questions, and it's always about men. We have like really long, in-depth conversations about my man's story, her man's story, their man's story, and then we just keep talking and try to find commonalities here. That's why we've got Cosmo, we've got magazines, we've got polls. There's so many ways that women are trying to understand men. But what are they doing wrong? They're not speaking to men to find out. And what I think is really funny is through these interviews, I learned that men are really trying to be understood by women. They see that there is a disconnect and they really want to be understood. But then the biggest issue is I realize that they're not allowing us to understand them, because there is an issue of safety that some men just do not feel comfortable expressing themselves emotionally. And one thing is that it's just no practice. They've never had the practice of being emotionally expressive. But the second thing is just there's so much fear behind being authentic. Because if you've presented yourself, you've worn this mask for so many years, for your entire life, and you self-identify now as this type of person, that is immensely scary to take that mask off and have people see the real you. And a lot of the times we just don't even let people get there. So, I think when I was in this journey trying to understand men, at the beginning, I was pretty disappointed that men aren't trying to understand women. Some are, but most of them aren't, because they're spending too much time trying to be understood. But they're speaking in a male language, and then when they're trying to say, hey, I want to be the decision maker, I want to be the caretaker for you, I want to be the provider for you. And women are saying, well, how about we do this together? Let's do this. Well, no, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to be the one that makes the decision. He wants to be the one that, explains how things are. Because if you go back to men talking to men, there's always somebody that's the leader. There's always the main guy and the sidekick. And then you might switch roles every now and then, but the roles are very clear. And I think it's really interesting. I was reading this study. It's called like the pickle study on kids, 3-year-old kids. So 3-year-old boys and 3-year-old girls. And then there's a plastic pickle in the playground or whatever. And the boys would fight over who gets the pickle naturally. And the girls figured out a way to, through imagination, split the pickle in 3 to share it, right? So women have always been conditioned, both, as kids in society, to share things, to incorporate intimacy, collaboration, in contrast to men that are thinking about competition, independence, freedom. It's all about me, 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 me. So naturally that ego develops over time. And there's always that desire to know that you're the winner, or that you can be the winner next, or that I got to present myself in a certain way to get that appreciation, to get that accomplishment. And that's when all of your self-worth now is in the hands of somebody else. And I'm guilty of this myself, it doesn't matter if I'm a woman, going with that same egocentric idea of needing to win, not caring if I even want to win. I just need to win this situation. It doesn't even matter if I want to be in it or not. And I think that's when people are in these lost roles, whether it's work, in a relationship, in anything, and they're just in this space that they don't even care about, but they just want to win. Just want to have the upper hand. They want to have the control and the power to express their freedom and independence. And then once you realize that that's actually the root, it's just about being free. It's just like, try to redefine what freedom means, because freedom would actually mean to be your authentic self, to be able to express yourself truly to be vulnerable without needing to express yourself differently to to change your words around so that you sound differently. And I think that is going to be the real game changer.
Oh yeah, to be the authentic self and not have, your brain programmed to be different in every situation that you come into, and just be the same person, whether you're walking into work or you're walking into your house. I understand there's some situations where people do have to be different, but in a majority of our cases of life, we should just be able to be genuine and authentic. And then you're right, it doesn't happen. And you've talked about men not allowing themselves to be understood. It's true. They want to be understood, but yet they're not allowing themselves to be understood. And they have the thing that drives me the craziest about men is their victim mentality, right?
Mhm.
Playing that victim card and, you know, oh, I did all this stuff. I fixed this. I did this. I went and done this. And, I lifted up the house. Like, come on. It's just not good enough, where they don't get that the woman wants them to be authentic, real, intimate, communicate with them, tell them, hey, such and such did this at, my job or whatever the case may be. And it wounded me, and be vulnerable that way. But we get, as men though, we get taught that, and then it becomes a cycle because we teach that to our kids and they teach it to our kids. How many men have been told in their life, little boys don't cry.
Exactly.
You can't cry, don't cry, right? And it's just, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. One of the men's groups I'm in, man, I'm telling you, there's not, usually by the time that's our group is over, there's not a dry eye in the house because somebody's been vulnerable and shared. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It's part of another thing that I want to talk to you about. But it's just, we need to realize that I like what you said. Women, let's do this together. Let's figure this out. Just like the pickle story. Let's split it 3 ways, where the boys are just going to be like, let's fight over this. Let's get bloody and have a couple bruised eyes and stuff like that, just to figure out who's going to get it, instead of just sitting down and saying, hey, let's share. You get a little bit, I get a little bit. So I love that. That was great. Why is storytelling so important when it comes to empowering people to share their most authentic self?
Well, I think that when you hear someone else's story, you're more likely to respond with your own story, right? We tend to mirror each other's actions. And if we only see one story, which is why, I have this real issue with the media and pop culture, because it's only one story, and it's the story of the entitled, it's the story of the privileged. And anyone that doesn't get that representation, you're just like, oh, I don't look like that person. I don't have that life. So I guess my story is not important. I just will choose not to share their story. So the more variety in different stories, whether it's told from the first person or a different person, or, however it's told, as long as those stories get revealed and are accessible to the world, I think there's then more opportunity for people to share their stories that might be similar, kind of different. At least it will inspire more stories to be told. And then that way we'll know more about humans in general, rather than just taking the first story and considering all humans follow the same script.
Yeah, it's true. Storytelling is something that I've been working on. I just finished a book in the last few months, really good story branding by, I think it's Dennis Miller. There's such good books out there that we need to educate our children how to be storytellers, and not to be disgenuine storytellers or embellish, but just to be able to communicate and tell a story. Here's a circumstance, and what do? They say, well, okay, well, write it down. Well, writing it down, your brain doesn't really, it's still not really connecting. But when you have to actually vocalize that story and tell, okay, what's happening in this room, Amanda? Tell me the story about this. Just something simple, just little steps where they learn to. Then they get you to go at the front of the classroom and talk. But really, most kids up at the beginning of the classroom would probably wet their pants a little bit, right? They're just not used to it. We haven't been conditioned to communicate and tell stories. But you're right, storytelling, is it really helps people. And you talked about the media, pop culture, and I jotted down here, how the media makes it all about the influencers and the wealthy and the celebrities. And because of that, we have a huge problem in the world with dieting, body shaming, especially for women. Men get it too. Don't kid yourselves. Men can be very harsh on one another. We got to look buffed and you got to do this, you got to do that. But I find it's just horrible. I know, again, back to my daughters, even what they go through today. My one daughter, she's had a couple kids, and how she had to get her body back to where it was like right now. And, people commenting and stuff on social media because she's a very pretty girl. She's got a modeling page. She's, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 followers. She's allowed, most of those people are following men. Let's be real. And she's allowing their comments or their things that they've said. It's body shaming, even if it's just, even if she's looking at her best and they're saying comments to her, it's still a form of body shaming and conditioning of her mind of how she should act and how she should be, and living her life to please them instead of pleasing herself. So if you have a child and it takes you 2 years to gain back your pre-pregnancy weight, oh, well, now you're chasing after, you're feeding a baby. Maybe you're breastfeeding. Maybe you're not. Maybe, you've got other kids as well to chase after. It's society is just, the media. I love that, the media, pop culture, but it's so true though.
Yeah.
We are so controlled.
Yeah. What I noticed about body types is, recently there's a lot more variety of women's bodies being portrayed in the media. But if you think of it, the reason why there was only one body type originally, which was like, thin is in, and or thin is always in, the reason that was created was there is only one male body type. That's the Greek god, kind of like 6 foot tall, buff, 12 abs guy, right? And everyone aims to be like that. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or whatever. Everyone aims to be that like strong man type guy. All the girls want the same strong man type guy. But now that we're introducing like a variety of different body types, big, small, whatever variety of women, it's still only one body type for men. And so I can see that pressure, and that's kind of how that bled into the expectations of women. But then I think women are obviously their own species. So they were just like, well, this doesn't make any sense. We have so many different varieties, and also different men are attracted to different bodies. And then I think with enough mass, that opened up that conversation. But unfortunately, I think still for men, it's still that only one body type. And that's very sad to see that, like, you don't see bigger guys like backup dancing, in a show. It's always those chiseled guys, and they all look exactly the same. And every app, every workout, every representation of the perfect man is still that strong man.
Yeah, products are sold that way all the time, and for women as well. And it crushes my soul, my heart, and it hurts because I think about the expectation of what women and men are supposed to look like. I immediately, when you were talking, flashed back to Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe wasn't the definition of the woman of today. She had curves, she had her weight issues, she went up and down. It was, what I think attracted people to her was her persona of what she presented herself, because she wore a mask right up to passing away, right? It's just, and that was a long time ago. And you think we'd evolve as a culture more? And like you said, women have to be a specific way, men have to be a specific way. Media plays on that, Hollywood plays on that. Everybody wants somebody to look a certain way, and really all it's doing is doing it globally, body shaming both sexes for being a certain way. Why aren't you, like you said, that chiseled man, right? Why aren't you that chiseled man? And why aren't you women? Why aren't you that perfect curvy, hips and, 0% body fat, and the list goes on. It's just unrealistic, the expectations we put on one another. So in your Hashtag wanted a mass men's series. I know your goal is to bridge the gap between men and women and how they interact. Can you tell us more about the series and why the anonymity of men who will be on the show is so important?
Yeah. So I used to do a lot of work for women's empowerment issues. I used to do a lot of fundraisers for a lot of charities that were women focused. And I hit a ceiling where, like I said before, I can empower a room where women's groups can be with a bunch of similar minded people, but that's it. So I'm just collecting more people of the same mentality. I'm not really changing other people's minds. I'm not opening other people's minds to that. I'm just creating a community. And then likewise, men will be in their own men's groups. Everyone's in their own silo. I think there was a bit of a problem with the idea of, if you can't get a seat at the table, then make your own table and make your own seat. If everyone starts making their own seats and their own tables, then there is no community anymore, because now everyone is just so individualized too much, to a sense that, well, then now what is our commonality now? And if we're not going to celebrate other people's individuality because we're not sitting with them on those tables, then what's really the point of even having any human connection? And when I wanted to start to bridge that gap, I realized, okay, I actually have the power here as a female host of this show to start interviewing men and having them speak about their emotions, because men don't really speak about emotions to themselves. And like, maybe if pushed enough, they might reveal the slightest bit of emotions to women, to their mothers, to their partners. And I see that that is some point that, as most women are trying to figure out how to understand men. I think they are appreciating the show because they get to hear these stories, they get to hear me speak about it, and they have the comfort of coming to me and asking me questions and asking me, which types of guys they would like to have on the show. Because it would be really different if guys were talking about emotions on like Joe Rogan's show. I mean, no women would be listening to that, right? And again, I think they would all be wearing a specific mask. They would all be talking about a specific type of self-promotion. There's going to be lots of male ego there. There's going to be a lot of expectation and pressure of like what kind of emotions we're allowed to talk about. They might be like overly machismo and talking about sex a lot. Again, the whole dick contest, right? So by removing the actual identity of these people, there is no room for ego anymore. There is no room for self-promotion. I don't have people coming on the show because they want to talk about their product or their business or who they are. And the exciting part is most male conversations are about them, what they do, not about who they are. So, you start with, hey, nice to meet you. What do you do? That's the first question you ask. You ask about their professional accomplishments, all of these material successes, rather than like, hi, how do you feel today? That would be a very different conversation to begin with. Or, hi, how was your childhood like? Or how was your week like? And talk about emotions, talk about deeper things. And it's a very awkward conversation. And I think it's a very interesting variety to experience all the types of guys that I meet, because some are very comfortable talking about feelings immediately. Some take a really long time, or maybe don't even crack at all in the entire conversation, but they are allowing themselves to try this for the first time. And I think that is immensely brave to watch, to experience, to have other women hear and listen to that guys are trying. And for other guys to hopefully open up as well and realize like, oh man, yeah, this guy opened up way more than the other guy. Like, I don't feel so alone anymore. And I think men tend to, in their search for independence and freedom, make themselves lonely by trying to put this hero's journey, lone star, lone wolf idea into their heads and follow this path alone, and believing like that's what a true man needs to be, like do it all by yourself. And I think by introducing all these additional stories, removing that judgment of their visual expectation, like when you see a movie come out from a book, you are validated by your expectations of what your imagination was for this person, right? Like, oh yeah, absolutely, that actor makes sense to play that role. But if you remove all those expectations, you are only left with those feelings. You are only left with that conversation and those words. And this is, I guess, bringing it all back to basics so that we can finally start feeling more and listening more, rather than trying to be something and, faking it again.
Yeah, and it's so true though. You talk about that visual of you go to the movie and you see that person. Sadly today, they spend a lot of time in Hollywood doing that.
Yeah.
And then Have you ever been disappointed? I have. I've been disappointed. I've gone into a movie and gone, that's not really what I thought that person would look like. So myself personally, I've been disappointed in who they've chosen, not necessarily always on a visual. Sometimes it's, you hear the actual presentation of what you imagine in your mind from reading that book, and how they present that character is what I mean by being disappointed. I've been disappointed in the representation and the overall representation. It's not always about the visual. So, I appreciate you talking about that. And I don't even imagine, I know this series is going to make a huge impact and difference. And certainly I'm going to promote it. Just with you talking, I'm going to promote it in our men's group. I'm going to talk to them about it. I've promoted many men as well now coming into that men's group too. And there's been a couple people I've interviewed that are now part of that group. And it gives them, they were so floored, and that's one of the things I want to talk about now. So I know you're intrigued to find out my experiences of being part of a men's group and how it has changed my life. And we can discuss that. However, first I have something I would appreciate discussing first. There are many reasons men struggle with the challenge of being open and honest in front of women. And being a man, I know a few personally. I have found that women as well can struggle with being open and honest with men. Why do you think this is the case for both men and women? Why can't we communicate and be honest just up front?
I think we're scared of the other person finding our crazy and not accepting it. And we're so afraid of that disapproval. And I think that comes a lot in our childhood, when you want everyone to like you, you want to find your tribe, you want to be the popular kid, you want to be liked. Everyone wants to be liked, and that's totally normal. But why spend your whole life trying to be liked by being something that you're not? Because eventually that will get tiring to do.
Yeah, it does. It does become tiring having that facade, even though we've talked about this throughout the whole conversation. It is something that, yeah, men and women being honest with one another. I think women have found they have to be a certain way because men are so defined and staunch and strict, and they don't let their barriers fall. And, I'm looking forward to the day where we can just all unify and be together and just at the same level. I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime, but we got to start somewhere, one person at a time, right? So I know you're a bold, courageous, fearless leader that never accepts the first no as the final answer. What led you to this resolve?
So I never really thought of no as an exercise of no, like you can't do this. I thought it was more of a challenge of, this is a gatekeeper that you cannot enter this gate, but there's more gates to go through. And I think I learned that understanding from my mom, who is more fearless than me. So, for example, we would go to a bank and they might refuse to speak to her because of her accent. She just wasn't able to speak English clearly enough. And whoever the teller was at that bank specifically refused to help her. Rather than taking no as no and what, we're not going to use a bank. Obviously not. She just went right back into her car. We drove to another location, went to a different bank.
Wow.
So that's what no means for me. That it's not really no, it's just this person said no. And that helped me understand boundaries better, because maybe I want to do something with a person, if we want to talk about consent, and that person says no, that's okay with that person. So find another gate, find a different gatekeeper, different gate. I think what people end up doing is putting everything into that one gatekeeper and confirming that the entire gate is closed just because of the one gatekeeper. And that's not true. You just have to find a new gatekeeper.
Wow. I love that. I love how the way you put that, gatekeeper. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can't, for those listening, I hope you've been enjoying this as much as I have. And I hope you listen to this conversation more than once. I'd encourage you, if you're listening to this while you're driving, listen to it at home later and have a notepad and take some notes, because there's so many nuggets of information and great things that can help you level up and continue to climb to be a human, not a better man or a woman, but a human, being the fact that we're all the same, and that you're going to strive to always want to, empower the person you're communicating with by being genuine, listening, like you talked about. And I've, resonate with that. People don't listen properly. That's the biggest problem. So thank you for that. That was great. Have you had many critics on your journey to be your own entrepreneur? And if so, how did you deal with them?
Oh, I've had so many critics. Let's see. I think when I started my blog, basically any boyfriend I had would disapprove of anything. So,
wow.
Speaking about image issues, it's really funny. When I had my blog, when I was working at Cosmo in London, and I guess it's just different with British culture, but I remember we went on a date. We were at a picnic on a weekend, and one of his colleagues saw us, didn't say hi, but just saw us, and told him, the Monday that he came back to work, you let your girlfriend wear her hair like that. So What ended up happening is out of nowhere, he started saying that my hair looked terrible, that it was brassy, that I should dye my hair back to black. My hair is blonde, so in context. And I believed him because I thought maybe it is brassy. Maybe I should switch it up, because I thought it was more about the aesthetic of it, until I realized, way later, a couple months later, he finally revealed to me that was why. And he was embarrassed to be around me, or embarrassed that he had no control over his girlfriend in that sense. So that's one example. He also was the one to make me delete body noise. So he said that was not the best thing to do. And so taking that learning onto Salty Paloma, the boyfriend I was with at that time, he helped me create the product a little bit. And I remember wanting to finally showcase the product. I was ready. I had them bottled. I made a bunch of flavors. I labeled them. I have everything ready to go. So the first thing to do was enter some local markets. And he said, well, what are you planning to do at the local market? You're just selling salt. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'll just serve it with lemonade or something, and maybe people might buy it. I don't know. And then he was like, well, how much do you expect to earn at the market? And I was like, I don't know, like $100. Like, it's not a thing. It's mainly for exposure and just the experience, right? And he said, well, I'll just give you $100. Will you take the weekend off and spend it with me? And it was just so funny that it wasn't about the money, but that's, I think, a lot of the ways that people would try to bring you down out of those assumptions. And, I can't even tell you how many people were like, LOL, you want to build a brand off of salt. And, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I think this is the first time that we've hit 6 figures on one individual sale. Yes, selling salt. So who's laughing now? And, I truly believe that whatever you want to do, I don't think salt is the end game for me. It's just the stepping stone. It was just my step to freedom, or financial freedom for that. And I chose something simple. You could choose cardboard, you could choose pens and papers. You can literally choose anything in the world. That's what I cared about. And I realized that this was supposed to represent inspiration for small business owners, people that have hobbies, to actually make a living off of that and do as many as you want, and to enjoy doing something for yourself for once, rather than having that expectation like, oh, well, if you're only going to make $100, I'll just pay you for $100, and you can't live your life that way out of that materialistic expectation. So,
well, yeah, because, and it was about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Him offering you $100 wasn't whether he helped and give you some focus or direction or whatever with the product line. He didn't get it. Yeah. He was just going through the motions. And wow, having to change your, talk about changing your hair and doing this and that. It's just, wow. Like, people just control one another so much. And then if you're a person that wants to please the other person, you're quieting your own voice. You're quieting who you are as a person to please somebody. And then they reaffirm that by saying they were embarrassed to be around you about your hair. And then they're, oh, what, you want to go do that instead of spending time with me here? I'll just toss you $100. Yeah. That's how I feel your idea is. It's, here's $100. And that sad thing is I wonder how much he actually realized it. Obviously, he might have after the fact, but initially, sometimes people need to have that filter. I used to always teach my kids that, and I coach people on that business. You know what? Sometimes if you think it, you don't need to say it, right? Sometimes you're better to be thought an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And I have had that. I've had that plastered, stuck it up for people, right? Better to be thought an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, right? Sometimes you got to think about what you're going to say to people before you say it. And had he done that, he would have never said anything to you about your hair. He wouldn't have cared what a coworker thought. Like, seriously, you changed how you're going to treat your girlfriend over a coworker? Oh my gosh. Shallow. But anyway, sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
So Amanda, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I think it's really important to always be searching for clarity in what your purpose is. And you can have many purposes. And I think you always want to give yourself that space to reflect, because without reflecting, you'll never learn. You're going to just keep repeating the same thing and keep feeling the same things. So find that clarity and keep reflecting, and then you'll learn more about yourself. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it is that simple. Most people don't reflect on the easiest thing for those listening to start. Reflect on your day. Mm-hmm. When you go to bed. Do you reflect on what was good, what was bad? If you feel terrible when you go to bed, what caused you to feel terrible, and how did you deal with that circumstance? As I coach people, when you're feeling terrible during the day, it's okay to have, it's okay to time yourself out. It's okay to check out for a few hours and figure out where where things are going wrong in your mindset, and actually analyze it. What happened? Why do I feel like that? Oh, wait a minute. I just got off a phone call, or I just had a meeting with somebody, and we actually analyze our day so that we can have a better day the next day and not beat ourselves up so bad. Because once we become self-aware of what caused us to feel this way and actually analyze, we become better the next day. And, obviously I'm not perfect at this. I work at it. Little simple things of even having gratitude exercises. Even this morning before I got out of my bed, I don't get out of bed now without having some form of gratitude, right? For what I have possessed in my life, what I've learned, and what the next day or that day part of me is going to be. So I appreciate that. So while our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time, however, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way to reach you?
I guess the best way is through Instagram at Miss Amanda Chen. You can also find me on my website, which is also missamandachen.com.
Okay. And I'll make sure this is all put in the show notes, which will be available on giveaheck.com. They can go into the podcasting tab, and you can actually find, you'll see Amanda's picture, and you'll be able to go and check out the show notes where you'll be able to find out how to contact her. And if you're challenged at wanting to do that, just DM me. I'll get you in contact with Amanda. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Amanda. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn. It is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together, let us all strive to give a heck.